I mean, if you think about these things, even on Sunday, war doesn't actually change. So once again, Fred is covered up, and once again, we still haven't got any police from Birmingham. The thing about this, though, is the old defensive structure is still there, so the more recent gatehouse course is still here, and the hyper-modern, postmodernist one has been stuck on the top. But from outside, it does of course make this thing more defensible. You have actually got this sort of ring of steel around the place now. Blocks the views off, but you've got a choke point for people. Now, of course, in defence policy, the problem is obvious. You've got the sort of residents of Birmingham plus tourists, so your visa system is effectively worthless. The visa that you're being given effectively means nothing because we cannot tell who is a Brummie and who is not. So you could make that kind of influence in terms of security, couldn't you? That could be a security policy. You have specific locality-based visas. One of those is a Birmingham visa, and that carries terrible penalties, so you don't ever want to have one of those because you'll be condemned to live there in the sort of city that John Cotton ran, whereas if you are a filthy capitalist you can just get out of there and tell them to get bent and soon. So I'm sure that will start on Monday. But in terms of defence policy, once again it's fairly obvious to everyone who isn't incredibly stupid that given the current level of sort of danger in the city, being in a place where you can casually walk into a place and buy weapons, you can nip into that place if you like, sort of buy various swords and axes. Down the way you've got the Edinburgh Armoury, various other swords, guns, crossbows, shotgun licences are of course fairly easy to get. Shooting range to the west, because it's Scotland, this is where the Romans went to die. So you can deal with John Cotton's lot fairly easily. These are again sort of cowardly bureaucrats hiding behind pieces of plastic, and they thought the plastic would save them because they're part of a bureaucratic structure which would let them get away with various criminal enterprises. But what they never got is that if you put a sort of sleeper agent in John Cotton's bureaucracy, get hold of his laptop, get a lot of insider knowledge as to how the organisation works, then as soon as the plug preventing you from actually doing anything physically drops dead, then you can just tear the place apart effectively, which is what's now happening to them. They're in a current unfortunate situation where they're trying to play the who is this guy game, and in legal proceedings terms, pounds and pence, they're going to have to play the brain damaged game. So once again, if Globo Megacorp employs Bob gets violently assaulted with a hammer and gets brain damage, then the cost to him and his family from that assault will have a legal liability cost. You obviously think through the process with medical evidence. The problem at this point is that the organisation is so corrupt that concepts like this in legal proceedings are just alien to the guy who I was signing off possession orders on behalf of, i.e. attacking people, right? So the deal is, the City of Birmingham pays me to attack people and say, I'm a gremlin, this guy is above me and he certifies my work. But of course, Fern is never demonstrated that he can make these kind of abstractions, understand these kind of things, because of the way the case management process used to work when the country was held together sanely. That would work. But as soon as they had to bring public sector housing in line with the private sector, all the little criminals got smoked out effectively. So no private sector organisation would run in the way that organisation did. But because there were so many people in the trough, we couldn't get rid of them, and the problem was these little cretins got hold of a building which did not look like these, right? So these are built with beauty in mind. You're walking past them and it's saying to every single person in the street, you are worth something, because we beautify our surroundings, we glorify something above ourselves. Whereas you look at the stuff the Brummies were building in a Scrutonian sense, and these are effectively prisons. So if you look at Woodcock Street in terms of its construction, this is clearly sort of an American-style supermax prison. It's just without actual cells, because you didn't need cells for the day-release prisoners. They let people work and try and earn a living based on debased currency, effectively. You can make inferences like this if you're not a complete idiot, because you can see the dynamics flowing through the organisation in these sort of wide-angle abstract terms, but because you may be surprised to hear this, but the people in the rent collection department just wanted money, destroyed it. So those kind of departments are not private businesses. They should be run to tight standards to prevent people being unlawfully attacked. And if you've got someone like Jennifer South or Brian Jones in charge, you're not actually going to be doing the sort of proactive tenancy support that you must do, right? So if your tenants haven't got basic life skills, so basic budgeting, basic knowledge of the welfare benefit system, because you're having these proactive conversations with them, then that is your fault, right? You're the head of the service. This is your fault that your tenants don't know what I'm talking about and can't have an adult conversation with me quite quickly because they've gone through the integration cycles. It's in their brain. I can call them up, and at the end of the process, when I'm about to attack them, I come off the call saying, yeah, so we're correct or incorrect. If I can't do that, the department's not running. So before leaving the city, I made clear that I was going to be the goalkeeper, effectively. So you've got me in a point one in terms of attacking people for the city. Again, you're talking 54,000 properties, so point one was doing the job. So what have they been doing with the amount of evidence I've been put into their databases? I'm sure there was a discussion about the entries in 2020 after we caught Craig Scriven and Michelle Hart. All this sort of stuff I'm sure will be followed up in minute detail by the Office of the City Solicitor. People trained to scour documents for every contradiction at the highest level with the highest ethical standards. I can't remember, it was Joanna Campbell or Kiretta Ferrell. I think the latter was the activist who gained access. But the entire project, again, has been reverse engineered back in 2020. So what are these people doing there? People in the court service don't actually respond to people who don't belong there because we tell you what to do, not you tell us what to do. So in terms of basic occupational health and safety, where I'm speaking to someone who is not legally trained clearly, doesn't know what she's doing, her qualification was, talking down to people I think in the leisure centre, I think what happened over the years is Southall confused an actual authority based on knowledge and intelligence with the sort of thuggery that she got away with for many, many years. The benefit of doing this after close to a year is you sit in this building over here and you think quite hard about sending this kind of stuff off because the bullets would go from Edinburgh Castle up there to Birmingham and it might hurt someone. But given where we are, hurting people in that city is quite a good idea. I was doing it for a long time legally, I'm still doing it legally, and we're going to keep doing it legally. So on Monday, if we have an appeal please, can the Managing Director of Bermondsey Council please be located, and can she explain once again the pounds and pence influence by not following law changes to ensure that staff, customers, people across the entire city of Birmingham can be free of a dreadful dangerous prohibition set down by the Labour government during my lifetime, which has now collapsed due to the private sector, and that collapse has also precipitated the collapse of Birmingham as people, after your auditors are being violently assaulted, your compliance staff can take the piss out of your managing director. So we're not going to do compliance when that woman's in charge. She's being removed. As it stands, because I'm sitting here, we're standing here in the streets, nobody I think can see this woman, she's not in the vicinity, there are various people walking around, it's a sunny day, there's nothing stopping her from coming, the only thing that's stopping her from being physically here is her lies.
啊，没开门了，那不进了，过来了，没开门就别等了，过来了。哎，咱们今儿走。啊，对对。哎，没开门别等了，过来了，过来了。走吧走吧，接着走吧。看今天是不是有做礼拜了？今天都是。
I mean, seriously though, has anybody seen Joanne Rowley? I mean, she's literally the most revolting woman I've ever seen. I mean, that photo of her is really quite disgusting. Her sort of gurning face, and you can think of her, about her sort of sitting in an office, gurning equity, as her disgustingly fat body sort of weighs her down, and reveals her to be this sort of revolting Harridan that can only sort of run Birmingham, because if you are that, it's based on Dutton's work. I mean, judging people what they look like is actually quite a good idea, because if you sort of read Aristotle, you don't. The thought is linked to action. So again, the brain and body connection linked to better psychotherapeutic outcomes. So in her case, her revolting behaviour is clearly just a result of her general attitude towards life and people around her. It did become that sort of organisation, though, a sort of charnel house of misery. When you started back in '09, it wasn't actually that bad. The people around were trying to be, they were still decent people, trying to do a difficult job in a hard place. But it was just torn apart by this obviously sectarianism and invasion and the political culture. So it became like a machine. If you think a machine goes a bit wrong and you can't fix it, it spins out of control, the wheels spin off and bodies go flying in bits everywhere. And that's what started to happen. So it was a direct link from people like Naylor's behaviour to police being violently assaulted with weapons in the streets and not being able to defend each other. When there's 2-on-1, two guys, they can't stop this one. Okay, he's quite big, but two of you can just pin him down. I'm sitting on this guy's chest, just punching him in the face, and you just punch him in the balls. I mean, it's very easy. But because they're mentally restrained, they can't defend themselves, so it gets dangerous. And then you've got the head of West Midlands Police still fucking about. He hasn't come back to me. So if you're a compliance officer in the city of Birmingham, and I'm saying, well, I've got these documents, clearly, we have to discuss them based on obvious safety. I'm your compliance officer doing safety reviews, you'll come and talk to me, and they're refusing. What does that tell you? So unless you could do the authoritative voice, they wouldn't listen, but they're now listening and hiding because it's coming back after God knows how many years, because you're not being attacked by an Irish criminal defence solicitor. If this never happened to you, it's quite a scary experience. So this terrifying brain, this primordial predator consciousness is coming at you, and the only reason he's pulling punches is because you're a blood relation. So if you can live in that kind of environment for 42 years and survive, then these little people can't do anything to you. Her theatre performance means nothing, her pathos, it's all just analysed by the brain, spat out, because you can only biologically be ethical. And again, he has an entire law firm set up to know this. It's quite obvious that given the case history, I don't actually care what these people think either. If they're going to be dishonest, then this is not actually my problem. This is your liability insurance problem, potentially. But the gears are going to start to turn from next week. You're going to actually start explaining what's been going on in that city. And I'm glad to see Cotton's no longer responding, so his throat has finally been cut. But he will now be found and actually brought to account for his behaviour. We can find Naylor as well and drag him back to Britain if he's fled. And some of the architects of this disaster can be prosecuted for a start, because you don't need to go to the sort of cutting people's heads off bit of the punishment process. You can just find people and jail them. This is still an option for the British. We still have Winston Green, so John Cotton can be found. There's a whole list of questions he's been avoiding by a lot of force. We're trying to slam stuff into his servers daily for months and call his managing director a pig. But I don't know, maybe I am just badly behaved, maybe I am dishonest, maybe I do have nothing to contribute to Birmingham, maybe it's better that I'm here, maybe it's better that better minds than me are running the city, maybe various things are better once certain relationships break down, but it hasn't broken down as yet, because I would reduce the place to a smoking pile of ash if we got rid of some of the people who have been brought into this country against our will and are now attacking the children when they're told to stop. And that, by the way, includes John Cotton and his managing director. So there we go. Your quest for Monday, kids. Emperor's New Clothes. Can anyone in the world find Joanne Rowley?